Hello everyone, we are back again with a new episode of Mind Map. In this episode, we will discuss about peasant movements. First of all, we will know about the importance of this topic from the perspective of UPSC. Then we will discuss about a short introduction, phases of peasant movement, impact of peasant movement, and lastly, practice questions. So this topic is important from the perspective of UPSC and it has been frequently asked in prelims 2011, 2013, 2018, 2020 and in 2019 mains exam. So first of all, let's have a look at its introduction. During British rule, various land and revenue measures were introduced which were proven to be disastrous for several sections of the society, especially for the peasants of the country. Revenue settlement measures like Raiyatwari settlement, permanent settlement and Mahalwari settlement resulted in extreme exploitation and eventual collapse of the old agrarian system. Also, these movements were not only against the colonial masters but also against their agents such as landlords and zamindars. There were various factors which acted as a stimulant for the peasants and as a result of which they took up arms and several peasant movements took place. High rents, illegal levies, unpaid labor, arbitrary eviction, lack of land security were some of them. Now let's discuss about the phases of peasant movements. The peasant movements can be classified broadly into three groups. Peasant movements before 1857, peasant movements after 1857 and peasant movement in the early 20th century. Now moving on to peasant movement before 1857. First is 𝐾𝐫𝐢𝐬𝐧𝐥𝐨𝐚𝐝 uprising 1831. This uprising was led by Mir Nithar Ali or Titu Mir in West Bengal. It was against the landlords who imposed beard tax and against the British indigo planters. It is also considered as the first armed peasant uprising. Next is the Pagalpanthis 1825 to 1835. It was initiated by the Garo and Hajong tribe to fight against the oppression of the zamindars. Their leader was Karam Shah and his son Tipu. They refused to pay high rents and attacked the houses of zamindars. However, the movement was violently suppressed. Next is Faraizi Revolt 1837 to 1857. The Faraizi sect was founded by the Haji Shariatullah in eastern Bengal. Their aim was to expel the English intruders from Bengal. The cause of the tenant against the zamindar was also supported by them. And Moplaha uprising 1836 to 1857. It was started in the Malabar region against the hike in revenue demand. And the oppression by landlords triggered the uprising and widespread unrest began. Now moving on to peasant movements after 1857. First is Indigo Revolt 1859 to 1860. The Indigo Revolt started in Bengal by the local peasants against the Europeans. The peasants were forced to grow indigo on their land instead of their crops. The planters also forced the peasants to enter into a fraud contract which was later used against the peasants. The revolt was led by Digambar Biswa and Bishnu Biswas of Nadia district. They decided to deny to grow indigo and also organized a group to counter the planters. Gradually, the peasants got the support of the Bengali intelligentsia who helped them fight the battle via legal path. Eventually, the government appointed the commission to inquire into the issue. According to the recommendation of the commission, the government notified that the peasants could not be forced to grow indigo. Next is Pabna Peasant Uprising 1875. The Pabna uprising was started in the eastern Bengal. The main reason which sparked this revolt was the forced eviction of peasants from their land and the high taxes. Also, the introduction of jute as a cash crop created turmoil. To oppose this exploitation, the Peasant Union was formed in the Yusuf Shahi Pargana. Peasants refused to pay taxes and collected funds to initiate legal actions against the zamindars. The revolt became a success when the government introduced Bengal Tenancy Act, as per which the land ownership of the peasants was recognized, and Deccan Riots 1874 to 1875. Due to the introduction of the Raiyatwari system, the peasants in the Deccan had to face the burden of heavy taxes. The situation became worse because of the high interest rate levied by the moneylenders. In 1874, the riots started the social boycott movement. Later, the riots also attacked the houses and shops of the moneylenders. The government suppressed the movement, but the uprising was successful, as the Deccan Agriculturist Relief Act was passed in 1879. Now, peasant movement in the early 20th century. First is Champaran Satyagraha 1917. In the Champaran district of Bihar, the peasants were forced to get into a contractual agreement. As per the contract, they had to cultivate indigo in the 3/20th part of their land under the 𝐃𝐫𝐢𝐬𝐡𝐭𝐢 system. With the decline of indigo market, the planters agreed to release the farmers. But the farmers had to pay various illegal dues. This stimulated the movement against the European planters. The movement was later led by Mahatma Gandhi, who initiated civil disobedience movement. Later, the British government appointed a commission to look into the matter. As per the recommendation of the commission, the 𝐃𝐫𝐢𝐬𝐡𝐭𝐢 system was declared illegal. The rents were reduced and the compulsion of growing indigo was stopped. Next is Kheda Satyagraha of 1918. In 1918, another satyagraha was launched under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi in the Kheda district. The reason of discontent among the peasant was the harsh rules of the tax collection. The first step which Gandhiji adopted was to deny payment of taxes. The government later issued a notice as per which only the peasants who were in position to pay tax had to pay tax, after which Gandhiji withdrew the satyagraha. Moplaha Rebellion 1921. The Moplaha or Mapila revolt was started in the Deccan region. The main grievances of the peasant were lack of security of tenure, high rents, renewal fees, etc. It was against the British policies as well as the exploitative landlords. It was initially merged with the Khilafat agitation. But once it took a violent turn, the leaders dissociated themselves from it. The government later took severe measures and suppressed the revolt. Next is Bardoli Satyagraha 1928. The Bardoli region was hit by flood and famine in 1925, which destroyed the crops. Ignoring the situation, the government increased the taxes by 22%. This triggered the uprising and no revenue campaign was initiated. Various leaders were involved in this protest, such as Mahatma Gandhi, Mehta brothers, and Vallabhbhai Patel. Due to increasing pressure, the government had to set up Bardoli Inquiry Committee. The committee came to a conclusion that the revenue hike was unjust. With great efforts by the national leaders, the revenue hike 6.03% was initiated. Next is Varli Movement 1945. This movement started in the Thane region of Maharashtra, where the peasants organized an uprising against the Maharajas and the Zamindars. The main points of discontent were the high interest loans and the exploitative measures of the Zamindars. And Tebhaga Movement 1946. This movement was launched in the northern Bengal in 1946. It was started as a rule was passed as per which the sharecroppers were not entitled to 1/2 of the crops but to 2/3 of the crop. To tackle the situation, the government set up the Bengal Land Revenue Commission or Flood Commission, which made recommendations in favor of the sharecroppers. Now lastly, let's discuss about the impacts of peasant movements. It created awareness about the exploitative nature of the British rule. It made a ground for future mass movements and developed awareness among the peasant about their legal rights. Various leaders emerged due to these movements, which later participated in the freedom struggle. Now it's time for the practice questions. First of all, prelims question. The demand for the Tebhaga peasant movement in Bengal was for the reduction of the share of the landlords from 1/2 of the crop to 1/3. The grant of ownership of land to peasants as they were actual cultivators of the land. The uprooting of zamindari system and the end of serfdom, or writing off all peasant debts. You can send the answer of this question in the comment section. Now moving on to the mains question. The British rule in India witnessed several peasant movements. Why did peasants rebel against the British? And what were the most common underlying factors? How did peasants mobilize against the rule? Discuss. So that's all for today. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks for watching.